climate change is, at least in the public sense it's understood, in no way science.
Okay. We'll probably get back to that after we're done.
We can come back to that, but it is in no way science.
I'm not a climate scientist.
No,
so it's,
I mean, I am on board 100% with the science of the greenhouse effect. When people say 97% of scientists, and you actually look at what 97% of scientists believe, they believe in the greenhouse effect. And the greenhouse effect is simply basically saying the release of carbon into the atmosphere warms the atmosphere. You'll get no disagreement from me on that. Now, there are several other propositions that are married to that, I think, smuggled under the carpet, things like human beings are the primary cause of these differences. Second of all, the best way to tackle them is to change ultimately the temperature of the Earth in various ways that we could try to affect through human behavior.
So your objection is, and we will get back to God like right after this. I don't know how far apart we are, and I have no expertise there, but it seems that your objection is primarily about how much are we the cause, what can we potentially do about it, what are the potential solutions, less so than what's happening.
Well, I mean, look, yeah, normally if I walk out and it's really hot, there are two possibilities. One is I can try to change the outdoor temperature, right? The other is I can take off my jacket. Those are two ways to respond to the same phenomenon.
Unless you're a polar bear.
Unless you're a polar bear. Now, there's a woman who counts the number of polar bears on the Earth. And she has nothing to do with climate change. She did a report a couple of years ago saying there are more polar bears walking on the Earth than ever. The polar bear population has multiplied. Now, right away she finds herself in controversy. Why? Not because her counting is wrong. It's difficult to count polar bears, admittedly, but she's the best one doing it in the world. But the reason she's controversial is it's not supposed to be the case. The glaciers are supposed to be melting, the habitat's changing, the polar bears disappearing. So the very fact that there are all these polar bears thriving and running around is like a major embarrassment. And so you have to dump on her and attack her. But even though she's giving you a valuable piece of data, scientific data, that bears upon the truth of this hypothesis. The hypothesis is that the Earth is getting hotter. Now think of it. The Earth is getting hotter by a degree or so Celsius over 100 years. And this is measured by things, in effect, putting thermometers in the ocean, which depend upon how far the thermometers are from the coastline, what the level of the ocean is at the... And these measurements are then modeled, in other words, put into computer programs to generate conclusions which ultimately have massive implications for the world economy. So what I'm getting at is, there are people who are asking us to change our way of life because of a 1-degree move in the climate. Now, my view on climate change is this. I watch the people who say this to see how serious they are about it. The very people who say this.
There's your mistake.
Well, for example, I look at Mike Bloomberg. Mike Bloomberg owns, I believe, 11 homes.
Can we stop looking at Mike Bloomberg? Because
well,
those ads are everywhere. Like, I got to Times Square, and it's like right there. Every time turn around, Mike Bloomberg.
But I'm just saying, here's a guy who says it's going to be a priority for him as president. And I would say, really, if you have 11 homes, shouldn't you go down to 7? Well, if you really thought that your carbon imprint is a little too big.
I would completely agree with you there, but Mike's hypocrisy isn't really relevant to what the data show.
But are we talking about the hypocrisy of everybody? Because...
No, I'm talking about what the data show.
Okay, here's the data. Everyone can see this data, okay? Now, the Obamas, who are major apostles of this data, just bought a $12 million house right on the ocean, right on the water in Martha's Vineyard.
Okay.
These are the same people who are saying that in 12 years or 10 years, Miami will be engulfed by the ocean. The oceans are going to rise and swamp coastal properties, right? And my point is not just that the Obamas are hypocrites. That would be one small piece of data by itself. Here's my point. If the data is believed, if it's plausible, if it's even probable, if there's even a 50% chance that that would be the case, real estate properties worldwide on the coast would plummet. And the inland would rise. But the fact that that's not happening anywhere, to my knowledge, tells me this. Real estate agents know it's bullshit. Buyers know it's bullshit. Sellers know it's bullshit. Everybody knows it's bullshit.
Curiously, all those people have no scientific foundation to assess the data. Maybe,
wait, hold on.
Maybe those people
No,
are buying those because they know we're screwed and they only got a few years left to spend their millions. Might as well enjoy it on the coast.
Really? That's what you think?
When I'm evaluating this, and first of all, I definitely want to get back to the God thing. I'm not a climate scientist. I'm not going to pretend any expertise, and there are areas of this where you and I are going to be in agreement. But when I'm trying to figure out whether or not something is real, I'm looking at the science and what the experts have to say, and you're looking at whether or not the Obamas are hypocrites, or whether Bloomberg's a hypocrite. That is not a sound epistemology to determine whether or not the climate is, okay.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, the climate scientists are, and I think this is more true of this branch of science than it is generically true, they're highly interested observers of this phenomenon. Climate science is a massively funded enterprise. It gets gigantic dollars, and the gigantic dollars are aimed at finding a predetermined conclusion. I don't think you're innocent of the idea that researchers get huge grants. Take researchers who get huge grants from pharmaceutical companies. Take researchers
Except this is bull.
This is bull.
Yes, because now the bulk of the world has at least, let's assume that the climate change stuff is BS. The bulk of the world is bought into it and are making efforts to change things, to change the way we live our lives, mostly so we can have a life. But now, wouldn't there be more money in the people who are actually going out to debunk this? This is the sort of conspiracy level thinking that people raise about science all the time. Oh, the money is leading them towards this conclusion. There's money in anything that you can demonstrate to be true. This is why I don't buy into the big pharma conspiracy stuff of trying to keep us sick, et cetera.
Okay.
Because there's money in a cure, there's money in new diseases, there's money in this, there's money in that, there's money.
Where's the money in debunking it? Let's say I have charts right here, and I show you the whole thing is BS. Who's going to pay me?
All those people buying coastal properties that you think are hypocrites.
Why would they pay me?
Because now, if you can demonstrate that it's BS, now their property values go up even more because now...
That just means they'll give the money to the real estate agents and to the buyers, but how are they going to fund me? How do I benefit?
You're suggesting that people will fund people to do research towards a foregone conclusion that benefits them, unless it's the foregone conclusion that benefits them that I mentioned.
No, I'm saying that it's simple common sense that when there is a proposition that leads to certain climate change is a huge industry. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. You look like a guy like Al Gore. Al Gore's been a government servant his whole life. Do you realize Al Gore has a net worth of $200 million? How did he get $200 million? He got $200 million through climate change. Okay, it's a very profitable business.
Okay.
The debunkers of climate change are sitting in obscure research institutions collecting a $55,000 salary.
Which I would argue is an ad hominem fallacy that says nothing about whether or not the data...
it's not. No, it's not ad hominem fallacy.
It is.
It's pointing to the fact that research is not disinterested. That's not an ad hominem point.
Al Gore's not doing research. The fact that he can profit off something is independent from what researchers are finding out. You don't get to shame researchers because they made some damn money.
But I'm saying the researchers profit in a huge way too. Look at climate scientists and look at the money that goes into the
I will investigate how much climate science.
But when you said something else as well, which I think reflects a lack of understanding of markets, which is you said the real estate agents, the stock market, the real estate appraisals, those people are not scientists, right? Those people may not be scientists, but they are in a business where they put their money where their mouth is.
Yes.
Right? So in other words, it's one thing for me to say, I'm running for president and the earth is getting hotter. It's another thing for me to say, you know what, I'm living in this house on the ocean, it's $1 million, it's going to be worthless in 12 years, I should sell it to Dinesh for $100,000. Because it's literally going to be worth zero.
The fact that they don't necessarily believe that doesn't say anything. An individual's belief about what they think is going to happen with respect to climate change says nothing about what the data show with respect to climate change. You're talking about how convinced people are. You might as well be running around claiming, and to get back to the God thing, because we still got the supernatural and the afterlife and the origin of the universe, This argument is essentially the same as saying, look at how many people believe it and how strongly they believe it and how some of them are willing to sacrifice their lives for this. That must mean it's true. No, that gets to what humans do or don't believe, which is why your objection about hypocrisy is one that I share. The fact that there may be hypocrites, or maybe they're just looking at it and saying, hey, I got this money, I'll do this, we'll see what happens. Maybe it will change, maybe it won't.
Here's the
That's
problem.
all irrelevant to what the actual fact of the matter is with regard to climate change or God.
Well, let's focus on climate change for a second. We'll turn to God in a moment. All I'm trying to say is that here is an issue that is transporting itself into the domain of public policy. Mm-hmm. So it's not an issue of pure science. This is not like, was Einstein right that E equals mc square, and we can send somebody to go look at an eclipse and verify verify that Einstein's prediction was true. That's an argument in the domain of pure science. In the climate change argument, it's going to have to come into the public domain because we're asked to make decisions like don't use plastic straws and change.
I agree.
Right.
And but now we've moved from what the data show about what is happening to what we should do about it. And I think there's plenty of room for disagreement, discussion, everything else.
That's where the disagreement's occurring. It's not occurring over, if you're telling me that the Earth has warmed by 1 degree over the last 100 years, I grant that to you. I say, what have you really shown me so far? Very little. Very little.
Sure.
Okay.
But neither of us are climate scientists.
Exactly, and fair enough.
And you'll be right.
And these are the same, by the way, these are the same climate scientists who told us, the same climate scientists who told us in the 70s and 80s that the Earth was cooling.
Really?
Yes.
The same guys in the 70s?
Well, I mean, it's...
Are they like 84 now?
Well, okay, fair enough.
All right.
Fair enough. So you're telling me now that even though we're measuring the same duration, i.e. not 1980 to now, but let's just take, for example, the Earth from 1900 to 1980. You're telling me that there's a whole group of scientists at top universities. There's a book by Lowell Ponty in the 70s called The Cooling. All the apocalyptic rhetoric of today is duplicated in that book with the sole exception that the Earth is cooling. It's not getting hotter, it's getting colder. Global cooling. In fact, I think this is the root of the substitutionary phrase climate change, because the climate in some way, is always changing. But the point is this, that all these measurements from 1980 going back the previous 80 years show a cooling trend. So you're telling me that they were wrong, and the new guys coming in...
I'm not telling you anything.
Well, I'm just saying that you're accepting now that a new bunch of guys will come in measuring the same phenomenon, right? Maybe using better instruments. And it's
how science gets better, yeah.
Yes, but it gets better by and large by greater precision. Not by basically saying that up is down and down is up.
Sure, but if you find, so there's, and I have no specific expertise, hey, Fly, in this particular, the thing is, this is science got it wrong before, so it likely has it wrong again, which is a fallacy in itself. Because the fact that the only thing in the entire...
let's probe that fallacy. Why is it a fallacy?
Because the past doesn't necessitate the future.
Right.
The fact that we discovered that science was wrong about something doesn't mean that our new discovery is wrong or as likely to be wrong or anything in the neighborhood. Science is the single most consistently reliable method for accurately understanding the world.
The natural world.
And the only thing that has ever come along to correct a flawed finding in science is more and better science, not religion, not hypocrisy, not what's the market doing.
But that's silly because that's, okay, that would be like me saying science is greater than philosophy because scientific findings are cumulative and they have gotten more precise and accurate about the natural world, whereas in philosophy we haven't advanced all that far past Plato. Okay,
I'll buy that.
You'll buy that?
So, philosophy, which I love, I'm a philosophy geek, especially when it comes to epistemology. But I don't think what have we done on epistemology since, I'll just stick with Hume. Once you have the foundations of thought, there's not much left to explore there. Once you have identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, once you have the foundations of a syllogism, once you have the foundations of set theory and Venn diagram, and you've got your epistemology, now that's when science can say, now we can tell when we're justified in accepting something and when we're not, and to what extent. And so science then does this inferential testing to build a model that is our best example of the universe, and it is tentative and subject to revision. That's what science doesn't make proclamations about truth.
Yeah, but I think you're...
But scientists do. So if there's a climate scientist out there that says, the truth is this, that's not science. That's preaching on behalf of science. What they should be saying is the data show this, here's the model, this is the extrapolation of this model, this is our best understanding and best estimate for what's going to happen in the future. So that they're making decisions like I am about my future based on actual data and not what we, and not just what we hope happens.
Well, I think it was Wittgenstein who said that even if all possible scientific questions could be solved, the most important human questions would still be on the table. Now, the importance of that is this. I think you're awarding a sort of prize to science based upon a stacked deck. You're defining scientific truth as somehow superior, and you're declaring that on that basis, arguing inside the bubble of science, science comes out first prize. And according to you, philosophy, because it's dealing with enduring human, you may say, eternal questions like what is good, what is right, how do you tell right from wrong, not to mention questions like how do we know what we know.
That's the one I went with.
Yeah, or to pursue, here's Immanuel Kant. You asked who went past Hume. I would say Kant did. You ask questions like, when I look at something in space, okay, is the space in the world, or is the space a mode of my perception? Is time something out there in the world? Just think about it. Time is this thing, this object with no weight.
Time isn't an object.
Well,
time is an abstraction.
Is an abstraction. And abstractions, by and large, live in our mind.
Yes.
So Kant's point is that space and time are dimensions of they are things that the mind brings to experience. They are not something out there in the world. Now, I'm not trying to resolve that issue. Okay, I don't think either of us is going to top Kant on this one in the next 30 seconds. All I'm trying to say is that to argue that this kind of a question is somehow either settled or unimportant because there is no way of sort of addressing it in a scientific sense, I think reflects a certain narrowness of perspective about the wide range of human knowledge, the wide range of disciplines, from history to psychology.
If I had said anything remotely like that, but I didn't.
Well, you gave a little kind of science comes first, and that's what I was responding to.
Science is the most consistently reliable method of accurately understanding the universe. The cosmos. The natural world.
The natural world, perfect, exact. But we live in a world where we are in a natural world to be sure, right? But we are anomalous objects in that natural world, right? First of all, we are conscious of our own existence. We are conscious that here we are in the world observing the world. Okay. That makes us different from most of the world. True?
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as I can tell.
Yeah, and as far as we can tell, even in the living world and in the animal kingdom, we are anomalous in that we not only have consciousness, but we have self-consciousness. True?
Some of us.
Okay.